RadioOrNot.com and SoFloRadio.com present The Nicole Sandler Show. Truth to power, baby.
Because there's something in the air. We got to get together sooner or later. Because the revolution's here, and you know it's right. We have got to get it together. We have got to get it together now.
Well, S-H-I-T. Sure happy it's Tuesday, and we're broadcasting live on the Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com. We're also live SoFloRadio.com, TalkRadio1.com, FilterFreeRadio.com. We're live also on Liberal Justice Radio this morning on the TuneIn app at TuneIn.com. Of course, I'm not Nicole Sandler. As you know, regular listeners know, Nicole is filling in this week for Randy Rhodes, live nationwide, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Good friends of the show, and everyone should know also that the Randy Rhodes show will be going off the air in a couple of weeks next month. And this is essentially the last time that Nicole Sandler will be filling in for the Randy Rhodes show, at least in this incarnation of the thing. So this is not a week to miss. RandyRhodes.com, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Nicole Sandler filling in all this week today. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, working hard. And it is our honor and our privilege to be here with you to help alleviate that workload a little bit for Nicole and help do our small part to make a difference here. My name is Jacob Dean. We host a program called Filter Free Radio. FilterFreeRadio.com is our website, and you can listen to us on Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com network live Mondays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We do the evening show on Mondays on Nicole Sandler's show, or Nicole Sandler's network, right? And our show, Filter Free Radio, is a show about being fed up with the status quo and how we change that and how we mobilize the people, you and me, to get active and be that change. And we do shows hopefully to reach, our goal is just to reach one person per show, and make a difference in one person's life. That eventually becomes a lifetime of difference. That is a success, in my opinion. That's what it's all about. And however you want to participate in that, by all means, join us. We'll be taking your calls live this program at 503-746-TALK, and we'll take your calls coming up in just a little bit. But first, before I welcome our super-duper awesome mass producer, co-host, and kick-ass all-around brother from another mother, I want to mention that we have a really cool interview coming up. And actually, I'm going to get to that here in the first half hour of the show. An interview with the founder of Activate Hub, ActivateHub.org, Lindsay Carone Epstein. Isn't it time that we organize the go-to network for all of the activism, all of the education on the issues, everything, all of the independent media? We need a go-to network that is easy to use, easy to navigate, is automatically updated, and it's already there, and we don't know about it, and we're not using it, and we need to connect ourselves. But without further ado, on the line with me is the brother from another mother, the co-host and kick-ass all-around, good guy and producer of our show, Filter Free Radio, Mr. Skeptical Scott.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jacob Dean, and good morning, listeners.
And Scott is live from our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. If folks don't know, Mr. Skeptical Scott is a D.C. native, born and raised, been there a long time, inside the Beltway, thinking way outside the box, brother. So this is
outside thinking, living inside the Beltway, but thinking outside of it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Absolutely. And we're got a lot of fun things to get to this program. We're gonna have a little fun near the end of the show, courtesy of John Oliver and the new show on HBO last week tonight. Yeah, they beat the shit out of Cover Oregon and what's going on here in Oregon State. And about time. Thank you, John Oliver. You nailed it, dude. And I've got to share that with you, especially being here in Portland, Oregon. We can talk about that if you want as well. How do people get away with stealing $250 million and there's no prosecution, there's no justice, and the taxpayer money is gone, and we're left with essentially what we could have had without spending any of that money? So we'll talk about that, and courtesy of John Oliver is brilliant. But and also, if we have time, I'm going to share with you a speech from the 15now.org event that happened in Portland. We talked a little bit about that yesterday on the Nicole Sandler Show. I'm going to play an interview that we did not have time to get to yesterday, and it's a brilliant interview with Ajamu Umi. He is an organizer of the All African People's Revolutionary Party in Portland, been organizing for that organization for 30 years, and he's got just a brilliant speech, and I want to share that with you if we have time later. And the question is, are you a revolutionary? The question behind the $15 an hour movement is, does $15 go far enough? We'll have that conversation as well. And we will invite your phone calls on anything you want to talk about, 503-746-TALK, all the contact info scrolling across the top of your screen right here if you're watching us on the camera. Scott, brother, let's go ahead and dive into this conversation about Activate Hub for the first half an hour here. And to kind of premise this, and let's give a shout out to Mark Taylor Canfield, fearless investigative journalist who's in the chat room at radioornot.com right now. Hopefully, if Mark has time this morning, he will be calling in a little bit later, and it will be a great thing to talk to Mark because he was covering the big, national conference of the 15 Now movement up in Seattle, where Mark is based. So, but the premise of this conversation comes from something that we've talked about before on this show, and that is the Progressive Radio Northwest.org forum that happened in Seattle on March 26th, talking about the future of independent media, the future of progressive media, and social networking, how it ties all in together, how you and I, the listeners and supporters of this independent media and the independent sources that we can trust, have to support it on our own, and this is how it will be sustained throughout the future. This clip comes to us from that conversation, and during Mark Taylor Canfield and Space Dog of SpaceDogRadio.com and myself and all the folks of Progressive Radio Northwest were there, and it was a free, open to the public event, and you were there, right? You showed up, and at the end of the event, there was a question and answer period, and folks got up and we had a more interactive conversation, which is, what democracy is all about, participation. And Lindsay jumped up on the mic and blew us all away and got applause from the crowd and talked about this new thing that she's working on. And I want to share that with you, and then I'll play our interview, which I recorded just yesterday, and our interview with Lindsay. She's the founder of Activate Hub, activatehub.org. Here is a short clip from the Progressive Radio Northwest Forum from that conversation.
Anybody have another question? Yeah.
Hello. I'm Lindsay. I have hosted a couple of radio shows and made a couple documentaries, and now I am the founder of a tech startup that is, I like to say, Craigslist for social change. So the goal being, no matter what city you're in, you could find all the documentary screenings, protests, political debates in a city. We are live in Portland and Detroit. I just moved to Seattle a couple weeks ago. So the way it works is it aggregates from other nonprofits or anyone who links to it. So any organization or individual can copy the URL of their calendar, put it on our site, and all their events will always show up, tagged by whatever they work for. So it's a super automated, easy way to create a really comprehensive database of the events and organizations and people that work for social change in your community.
What's it called again?
Activate Hub. ActivateHub.org. So we're only in Portland and Detroit so far. I am looking for people who want to help run the Seattle site. Help the Seattle site means maybe spend 2 hours a week looking for calendar feeds to import or deleting extraneous things that show up because so much of it is automated. But I call it a calendar. I call it an info database for social change. Personally, I think it's the future of media. Why? Okay, on every event page, there's comments. So people, when they go to a protest or they go to a political debate, can have conversations there. And it lends itself to some great first-hand reporting options. As a journalist, when you already mentioned the difficulties in finding guests, and as a listener of progressive radio, you often hear the same guests over and over. How do you find other people that are working on issues? So with a database like this, anyone can use it anonymously, but people can opt to have profiles, and as they RSVP, it kind of tracks. I want to find out who's involved in gay rights in the city. How do I do that? And right now, if you Google climate change in Seattle, good luck finding the organizations or the people or the events or ways to get involved.
Oh, yes, but there is one.
Yeah. I also have been doing an Activate Hub Radio Minute in Portland. So we do a weekly, 2-minute, here's some of the great activist-y events that are upcoming. Of course, I would like to expand that once our Seattle site is up and running to any show that wants to carry it here. And of course, I think you've been talking about having a network for progressive radio stations. If this is the place where you're finding all the organizations for progressive change, I think it's a good place to find the radio stations for it too. No story. And I need help. In any way.
Have you tried to recruit people who work here?
Yes, everyone's working.
They're
On
totally
their own thing, you know, everyone's like the founder of some starving startup here. But I've only been here 3 weeks, so I'm
Any response to that notion?
I would just say, going back to the point earlier of how do we organize, how do we create, how do we find guests, how do we establish connections and stuff. I'll tell you right now, I'm so inspired by Lizzie's comment, what she's doing, that I know that my interest, I've already written on the website and everything, I know that if it's piqued my interest, it might pique one of my listeners' interest on my radio show, and so now I'm going to make it a point to get Lizzie on the program, or at least play, some audio of it. I mean, and that is literally, you just witnessed, that is how that happens. And it's just, all of us we're kind of doing our own thing independently, and somehow, some way, the paths cross. And as long as we do something, and rather than ignoring it or letting it go, or just, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, do it. Just do it.
I agree. I actually think we have an obligation.
Yeah, that good-looking fellow there in the suit and tie and hat, that's Mr. Mark Taylor Canfield. He's in the chat room right now at radioornot.com. And that's how this conversation started. That's exactly what happened, and that's exactly what I said. And trying to be true to my word, not only to be true to the word, but to, participate in this solution, to make a difference, to be the change. I followed up on that, and because I really wanted to talk with Lindsay about Activate Hub. And thank goodness she had a few minutes to do a pre-recorded interview with us, and I'm going to share that interview with you right now. This is our interview with Lindsay Caron-Epstein. She is the founder of Activate Hub, activatehub.org. Enjoy. And on the line with us is a very special guest. She is the founder of Activate Hub, Lindsay Caron-Epstein. The website, activatehub.org. And you can also follow her on Twitter at ActivateLinz. And also follow Activate Hub on Twitter at ActivateHub. Lindsay, thanks so much for joining us.
Jacob, thanks for having me. Hi.
Tell us, for our friends who have no idea and have never heard of Activate Hub, what is Activate Hub?
Activate Hub is an action-based social network for social change. So it's an aggregated event calendar for all of the protests, documentary screenings, lectures, political debates in each city. And it kind of automatically populates with all these events so that you can find the organizations, events, and people that are making an impact in your community.
Oh, wow. So you're essentially organizing, trying to really organize all of the activism that's happening.
Absolutely. And I tend to identify as an activist, but I certainly hope that the users of our site, I would paint that with a broader swath, anyone who's interested in learning more about social political issues. So there's the people who want to tie themselves to a tree and stop the bulldozers from coming through, but also anyone who just wants to know more about how do these new healthcare laws impact their lives and how can they sign up, and what is Prop 8 or Prop 1, depending on where you're living, and what is the new legislation that we should be intrigued about. How do I go find out more about climate change and gay rights? So we're hoping for a really, really broad swath of the civically engaged.
All sorts of events and organizations and venues, absolutely, and that's I firmly believe in, if we're going to create significant change, to the extent that we can create significant change, it's going to take all of us coming together and unifying and building that community, building that Activate hub, and giving the activists not only a place to come where they can share their events and share about, what they're doing and showing up in the streets, but also, like you're saying, learn and educate ourselves and educate more about the issues so we can, be more apt to go out and get active, right?
Absolutely. I think that having issue silos has been such a huge hindrance to change amongst the progressive movement. It's a beautiful thing that so many people care passionately about a cause, to kind of label themselves as, I'm an environmentalist, I am a gay rights advocate. But there has to be a place and a time where we come together and support each other. And that's in part because we need each other, but also the issues, the core pillar issues of whatever it is you care about is the same. When it comes down to it, we're really all fighting the same corporate personhood and money in politics, and no matter whether we consider ourselves someone fighting climate change or someone working on poverty issues, we have to come together and fight those core issues at some point. So I think it's important to have a platform where all those people can still self-identify in their silos and still be a part of a larger connected community.
Absolutely. I had a caller call into our radio show last week who wanted to talk about essentially this idea of, do you remember the pencil drop in school or whatever, when at a certain time at 1 o'clock, when the clock strikes 1 o'clock, everyone drops their pencils, stops what they're doing, and come together. And of course in school it's like read a book or something, but now we need to reorganize something like that pencil drop in society, where every Monday folks in North Carolina are stopping what they're doing and going and participating in Moral Mondays. That kind of pencil drop, come together unity. I think there's really something there and something behind that. But if folks are just joining us, we're speaking with founder of Activate Hub, Lindsay Corin Epstein. She's the founder of Activate Hub, the website activatehub.org. Lindsay, can you talk about how folks and everyone listening can actually use Activate Hub, and how we can come together and build community and use Activate Hub to do it? How can folks get on there and participate?
Well, if you go to activatehub.org, there's a lot more information about the site. There's some demo videos on how to use it. There's ways that you can get involved. Strictly from a user standpoint, you click on the city, and within your city, you can start searching for events. You can filter it by topics, whether that's human rights, healthcare, or you can say, I don't care what the topic is, I just want to see a documentary or go to a lecture. So you can, as a user, filter by those options. There's a list of organizations, so you can see which orgs in your town work on specific issues. As an organization or an activist, you can sync a calendar. So you can create a listing for yourself, anyone can, and then you can just copy and paste the URL of your calendar, and all your events will automatically show up on our site.
No way. So it's like set it and forget it, autopilot.
Yeah. We tried to automate it as much as possible because we know that so often events calendars end up being dominated by those who have the financing to hire someone to promote events.
Right.
We really want to support smaller organizations and grassroots activists who don't want to have to think about, where do I go to publicize it? So we want things to be as automated as possible. So you can just sync a calendar, or you can add events directly to it like a wiki. You don't have to submit and wait for approval. That's how you can use it to promote your events. And then, of course, there's a multitude of opportunities for anyone who wants to get involved. We want to launch in more cities, so we're looking for curators who want to be a part of that. We're always looking for any support, be it development or financial. There's a donate button. Let's not overlook that.
Absolutely, yes. Right at the top of activatehub.org, and I've got it open in front of me. And it's a great website. It's a fantastic idea. And I'll just share with listeners how, I came about and discovered you, Lindsay, was up at the Progressive Radio Northwest Forum on March 26th in Seattle at Impact Hub. We were talking about, the future of independent media and the future of progressive media and all these things. And Mark Taylor Canfield was there, and Space Dog Radio was there, and folks at Progressive Radio Northwest putting on this great event. And then at the end of the event, we opened up the mic to everyone there and a question and answer period. And you hopped up and jumped on the mic and said, "Time to organize, guys. Let's get together and create the Activate Hub." And Lindsay, you got the first applause of the evening from the crowd. So, and we at that point were already talking for like an hour and a half. So I'm just saying, it was good stuff. And then I was like, well, I've got to talk to you, and I've got to get her on the air and talk about this. So this is why, I wanted to have you on in case folks were listening. But
it's kind of amazing how often I hear. I mean, every time I go to an event, a progressive event, of course, if I'm at a documentary screening or a protest or a panel, consistently across the board, every event, I hear the need expressed. Why is it so hard to get involved? Why are all these different organizations not working together and coming together? Why can't people find the ways to get involved and use their time in meaningful ways? So we built a platform for it.
Again, we're speaking with founder of Activate Hub, activatehub.org, Lindsay Epstein. Lindsay, tell me about how you actually built Activate Hub. How did you get it to come together and create the website? Tell me a little bit about that.
The creation of the site was super interesting. It was definitely a long time of seeing that this need existed and hearing all these people express frustration that they couldn't make an impact, which to me is so sad, right? Because it's really easy to find all the bands playing in every bar and every movie and every theater. But if you want to use your time in a meaningful way, and to think like apathy is a problem, sure, but to think that there's so many people that want to make a difference and don't know how, like that lost energy and that lost momentum, that shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
We've got enough obstacles.
Exactly.
So it's a pretty robust platform, and I've had some developers, some really renowned developers, look at it and say they would, charge something like $150,000 or $200,000 to build it, which I had no money. I was still in school and living off of student loans when I started working on this.
Right.
So we got it built in a pretty interesting way. And the more I discover this world of tech startups, the more I hear from people that it's pretty fascinating how I got it built. I found volunteers and I organized hackathons and code sprints, and we found open source solutions and APIs and cobbled this thing together with volunteer power. So it's really unusual to have a website built by the community. And it's built over the course of 3 years by probably 20 or 30 different people. A community building platform for communities built by the community.
Amen. Can I get a hallelujah out there? Somebody.
Hallelujah.
That's excellent. And oh my goodness. And so, that's essentially my question. You beat me to it, is what really makes it unique? And that is so unique and so special. And that alone right there is on a level that is able to connect with me and connect with the people who are into this radio show, because that's what it's all about, is coming together and building that community and being the change, making the difference, showing up. And I can't tell you, Lindsay, how many times I've had this conversation with people, and they're like, I just wish there was some place where we could go, just one place, and it's all there, and everything is there. If I want to go participate in the activism, if I want to learn more about the issues, if I want to get involved and show up, I wish there was just one place where we could all go and come together under one umbrella and make a big difference together. And you have created it. And not only have you created it, but that is a hell of a way to do it. That is awesome.
When you have no resources, how do you get things done? Yeah. And, right now, like if you Google gay rights and your city, you can't find all the organizations working on something. And if you did find half of them, they'll be like buried on page 10 of your Google search, you know, then you have to go to every single one of their websites individually and find an event listing or sign up for their newsletter. Like, so right now, those of us who want to make a change have to get like 100 emails and suss through them to see if there's someone who told me to show up on a day that works for me. And that's too difficult.
Right.
You know, I'm really busy. I'm available Tuesday night. What's going on? And can I find that out quickly?
Right.
You know?
That's so, you're so spot on. It's like, you know, we all have lives and we're all busy, and I totally get that. Let me be at the forefront of the nonviolent revolution and the forefront of the hypocrite couch potatoes. And, you know, I get it. The reality is we only have so much time and so much effort that we could devote to the struggle, and to be able to organize the who, what, when, where, why, how, and make it so easy for people to get in there, get what they need to know, be on their way, show up at the protest Tuesday night at 6, because that's all you can do, you know, but you are participating at a very small but very important grassroots level in the revolution, in the rebellion, in the revolt, essentially, I would add. And this is what we need to make a real difference in the world.
Yeah. And my one other hope with it is, you know, the hardest part about event organizing is not organizing an event. It's getting the people to come to it.
Right.
And so I want it to be easy for more people who have, I kind of want to screen this documentary. I kind of have a potluck. If there's a place where you can post that and you feel confident that people will come, people are more likely to do that. And we saw that part of my inspiration was there was a calendar for the tech community in Portland called Calligator. We built on top of that platform, and between the Calligator platform and then there was a calendar for the bike community. And you saw this community begin to thrive and grow. People who previously said, oh, you know, I wish I had someone to ride my bike with at sunset, suddenly posted it on this calendar and 50 people would show up. And so I'm hoping that we can see that kind of a snowball effect of people who are dreaming that are able to just post and the community will come and take action. I think that's the power of a calendaring platform.
I'm so with you. Again, folks need to check out activatehub.org. Lindsay, and again, thank you, Lindsay, the founder of Activate Hub, Lindsay Carone Epstein, for joining us for a few minutes. Can you tell us where Activate Hub is already live in what cities are you already, you know, on the ground and running, and how's it going there?
We are in Portland and Detroit, where we have about 3,000 or 4,000 visitors every month. We're still looking to expand both our user base in those cities and launch in other cities. So we're about to launch in Seattle, and hopefully DC and Boston are next. So
Excellent.
If you happen to be in those cities and you want to get involved, please let me know.
Looking at you, We Act Radio, 1480 AM, WPWC, weactradio.com. Just looking at you guys, just saying. Sorry.
It's fine. And kind of what exists already to me is really just our version 1, and we really hope to add a lot more features that make it possible for people, that make it easier for organizers, right? So if you are organizing a fundraiser or a political rally or a documentary screening, where do you do that? And part of this comes from, I'd made a documentary about healthcare, the healthcare movie, which was narrated by Kiefer Sutherland. And as we screened it across the country, finding the places we could do that, and we, with no money, trying to find out where in these cities we've never been can we host screenings, like what kind of venues are amenable to that. So there's kind of a suite of tools that we expect to release that make it easier for people to organize grassroots movements, and that's kind of next on the horizon there.
Very cool. Very cool. How can folks help you help Activate Hub and help this grow and become a big thing and a big reality and make real significant change in the world? Help us empower ourselves to be that change.
Use it. And there's so many ways you can do that, whether you're just searching for events or commenting and sharing and liking. Of course, it's unfathomable to me how important social media is in spreading the message and helping it grow. And that sounds sort of silly, but absolutely. Anytime you can spread the message, whether it's email blasting or liking and tweeting, the more users we have, the more easily we can get funding. Right now, it's an entirely volunteer effort. If you would like to join that volunteer effort, fantastic. But really, we need to get funding to make it a sustainable and scalable thing that really has an impact. So in our quest to acquire funding, the more users and the more active it is, that's a significant help to us. And of course, you can get more involved by going to Activate Hub and contacting me.
Excellent. ActivateHub.org is the website. The founder of Activate Hub, Lindsay Carone Epstein. Thank you so much for a few minutes of your time. Is there any other way for folks to check out the website other than ActivateHub.org, or is there anything else that we missed that you want to mention?
If you want to go directly to see a city calendar in action, because the Activate Hub site is more informational about what we're trying to do. So to see a city calendar directly, you can go to activatepdx.org or activate313.org. That one's Detroit and Portland.
Perfect. Lindsay, thanks so much for your time, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jacob.
Hey, let's give a shout out there. Good stuff. I was digging it, as I said in the video, and then as I said in the interview, and then as I said right now, I was digging it. And if you dig it, you need to check out activatehub.org. This is the Nicole Sandler Show. We are broadcasting live. It is Tuesday, April 29th, 2014, live at radioornot.com, SoFloRadio.com, TalkRadio1.com, FilterFreeRadio.com. On the line with us, of course, is our brother from another mother, Mr. Skeptical Scott, live from Washington, D.C. And we also have our comment line open. We invite you to participate in the conversation. All callers go to the front of the line, and we are taking your calls now at 503-746-TALK, 503-746-TALK. You can also email Jacob at filterfreeradio.com, skeptical at filterfreeradio.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, all of the above. Check it out. And on the line with us is our good friend and the fearless investigative journalist out of Seattle, and a good friend of the show. You can follow his reporting on Facebook, facebook.com/mtaylorcanfield. Follow him on Twitter at mtaylorcanfield. And it is an honor always to have Mr. Mark Taylor Canfield on the line. Mr. Mark Taylor Canfield, how's it going, brother?
Hey, Jacob. I am so psyched to see you sitting in for Nicole Sandler, one of my favorite people in radio. Such a great connection that we've all, grown to know each other over these last few years, and we're all sticking in there despite the fact that a lot of folks have been kicked off the corporate airwaves. So kudos to you. And hi, Skeptical Scott. Hello in Washington, D.C.
How's it going, brother?
Good to hear you.
Good to be heard.
Yeah, making it happen. I should mention real quick the reason we're in for Nicole Sandler, I forgot to mention, is because Nicole is in for Randy Rhodes all this week live, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern at randyrhodes.com, and folks need to check that out as well. And it's, as Mark's saying, for us, it's an honor and privilege to be in for Nicole, and so there we go.
Yeah, I've been, I learned about Nicole when she had guest hosted for Randy a couple years ago, and ended up calling in while she was guest hosting, and we sort of became friends over on the air. And she was actually one of the first programs that allowed me to speak out about the issue of the loss of press freedom in the United States, because, like I've said many times before, even the alternative so-called media doesn't seem to want to talk about it.
Right.
But she put me on for an hour, and we got down to brass tacks, and she was outraged and with self-righteous indignation.
Right on.
And I knew that she was conscious and aware and knew what was going on at that point, unlike most of the people in the media I've had to deal with. So
right.
I love her. I love Randy, too. I'm so sad she's going off the air because she's always told it like it is. But, they've set a good precedent for the rest of us and really inspired us to do the same. So we're going to pick up the slack, Randy. Don't you worry. There will be plenty of voices out there. You've taught us how to do it, so we'll keep the ball going.
Here we are.
Keep it in play.
You betcha. Here we are, making it happen.
Absolutely. Everybody who's listening, you're in the right place, that's for sure.
Mark, you are up there in Seattle, up here in the Great Pacific Northwest, just a little bit north of me, up here in Oregon. And do you want to, for a quick mention, yesterday we spent a majority of Nicole Sandler's show talking about the 15now.org movement and the movement to raise the minimum wage. And I played an interview we did with Shama Savant, the Seattle City Council member. And Mark, you were covering the big national 15now.org conference, which happened over the weekend. And got reports and stuff, and folks need to follow all of Mark's reporting. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about that gig that happened in Seattle?
Yes, it was the first ever national $15 an hour minimum wage conference, and it was pretty amazing. They had Glenn Ford from Black Agenda Report.
Yeah.
One of the founding members of the Washington chapter of the Association of Black Journalists. He was awesome. He did a workshop on racial inequality. We had David K. Johnston, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist who wrote Free Lunch and has a new book out called Divided, The Perils of Economic Inequality. He was amazing. He also gave a talk at Seattle's Town Hall later in the evening, so I got to hang out with him a couple times.
Nice.
And talk about an inspirational figure. I mean, he put out some statistics about this 0.1% that's running the country that just blows my mind. In fact, the thing that's going to stick with me is his presentation about this imaginary graph where if you take the average working person's wage in 1966 and you compare it with 2014, and you create a graph where it's actually increased by 1 inch on that graph since 1966. If you compare that to the top CEOs and the multinational corporations, their graph would go up 800 feet through the roof. That's the kind of economic inequality we're talking about. So David K. Johnston was really awesome on that issue, and he really laid it out there so everyone could understand the ins and outs of how these corporations actually benefit and make profit off of our federal tax system,
right.
How they hide their money overseas to avoid paying taxes. And it's just scandalous what's been going on Wall Street and in Washington, D.C., with these multinational corporations. I just don't get it. Nothing has really changed since the crash of 2008 and the Occupy Wall Street movement and the Tea Party's reaction. It's still the same old business as usual, where the too big to fail groups get all the money and the rest of us get left holding the bag. It's sad, really sad.
Yeah, not this week's Filter Free Radio episode, but last week's Filter Free episode number 113, we titled it "Welcome to the Oligarchy," and we talked about, what should we be adding to a new declaration. And I'm so happy you called in, Mark, and reminded us of your report that you wrote called "My Declaration from the Independence," or "My Declaration of Independence from Wall Street," and of course back in during the Occupy movement and all of that was happening, and this was a great article, and I pulled it up, and Mark went through this thing about how multinational corporations and Wall Street financiers have falsely claimed to have the same rights as individual human beings, accepted public bailouts, and subsequently refused to establish necessary reforms, taken away our homes, devalued our pension funds, attacked the rights of labor to organize and form unions, all of the above, falsified records and committed securities frauds. And Mark lays out the whole thing. And at the end, I'll read this. I love what you write, Mark. A weakened fourth estate through the mass commercialization and corporate consolidation of the media, resulting in a loss of press freedom. We, therefore, the people, do solemnly publish and declare that we are and of right ought to be free and independent from corporate domination and control of our economy, our government, and our electoral system, that we are absolved from all allegiance to the corrupt bankers on Wall Street, and that all political connection between them and the government of the United States of America is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that we as free and independent states have full power to protect the rights of the people, conclude peace contracts contract alliances, establish trade, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do without influence, intervention, or interference from corporate interests, and for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on our solidarity with people all around the world who are struggling against tyranny to establish peace, freedom. We pledge to each other our mutual aid, assistance, and report. Quote, Mark Taylor Canfield. That is what it's all about, brother. And you know, and the other thing I wanted to mention real quick is Scott and I love Glenn Ford of Black Agenda Report. We play Glenn Ford on the show a lot, and I think Scott, what's your favorite Glenn Ford thing about?
Obama is not the more effective evil. I'm sorry, I'm going to totally butcher that. This is back during the 2012 campaign with Romney and Obama, and Obama. It's the same thing.
Good enough,
it's all
right?
the same thing.
That was a perfect slip.
Yeah, well, they're the same thing. Anyway, it was his whole thing was he's not the lesser of two evils. He's the more effective evil, and it was very appropriate because he said that he's actually managed the crisis on behalf of the 1% and the military-industrial complex far better than any Republican could have. And he's right. I mean, Obama and Clinton are like the best Republican presidents we've ever had.
Woo. Telling it like it is. Wow.
And
it was such.
I was just going to say, let's be clear. This is we're open about this is our opinions on the news, and we are, it's unfiltered. So there you go, right?
Well, it's not about the individuals. So
yeah.
I just thought it was such an honor, to meet him, and such an honor to meet David K. Johnston and hear these truth tellers that, just to let everybody know, Johnston's new book, Divided, The Perils of Economic Inequality, is his own pet project. He's really not making any money off of this book. He just wants people to hear the truth. And he was able to get some really heavy hitters to contribute. He basically edited it, but there's actually an article in there from Paul Krugman and a lot of really amazing information. I think that the cat is out of the bag. Everybody has known since 2011 what's going on. I remember when President Obama made his speech saying, wow, I would really like to bail out the middle class, but unfortunately we got to bail out the top 1% first, because, if we don't, the entire economy is going to crash. And that was what George Bush's theme was too, was that, your banks are going to close, they're going to foreclose your home, everything's going to go to crap if we don't bail out these bankers. Well, here we are in 2014 and nothing has changed. There's still corruption in Wall Street. There's still speculative, derivative type investments that put the entire world's economy at risk. And we've been watching as Europe goes down economically, and it's just obvious that the system as it is not working. So, I think Tom Hartman is right. He has a new book too called The Crash of 2016. I think David K. Johnston said the same thing. I asked him at the town hall forum, when's the next bust? And he said, well, I can't tell you exactly when it's going to happen, but it's definitely on its way because nothing has changed. So these have all been stopgap measures that haven't really reformed the system at all. And the same people are still pocketing the taxpayers' money and living off of the corporate welfare that the government is giving them. So in Washington State, we have a prime example. Governor Jay Inslee called a special session specifically to address the Boeing Corporation because they were threatening to leave the state once again if they didn't get these huge tax subsidies. So one of the things that David K. Johnston pointed out was that if you took all of these tax subsidies and actually eliminated them, you could do away with most of the income tax in the United States of America. But, obviously that's not going to happen because the people that hold the purse strings are the same people that are trying to sell you genetically modified organisms and fossil fuels and, you name it. It's their game is profit. It's not what's in the public interest. And I think that's the problem. It's a real problem with our system of values right now. So
we
I
do
think
need
it's
a
gotta
radical
change.
We do need a radical revolution of values. I'm with you.
Yeah, I was saying that it's not really a political or economic issue, although those are results. It's actually a problem with our system of values. And as long as people value the bling over the human dignity, then we're in trouble, because that's not going to work.
And as long as there's no incentive to do the right thing, right? There's no incentive to do the right thing. There's no money. There's no pat on the back. There's no gold star. You just kind of have to do the right thing and, you know, submit yourself to personal sacrifice to do the right thing. And maybe, you know, you might find some other people also doing the right thing, and then you can build a community together of doing the right thing. But if folks are just joining us, we're speaking with independent journalist and good friend of the show, Mark Taylor Canfield. And we do have our comment line open. We'll take your calls at 503-746-TALK. All calls go to the front of the line. And Mark, do you want to tell listeners and kind of, you know, I guess promote the new project that you're working on a little bit? Because I'm super excited about this. I'm going to be doing everything I can to get folks to check it out, to be a part of it, to link to it, to connect with it, to network, and to grow it. And it's going to be a beautiful thing. So do you want to tell folks about it?
Yeah, there are these organic networks that are popping up. You know, Nicole Sandler's Radio or Not was one of the first to do this, but they're starting to grow. And there's a network called Indie Media Weekly, and there was just an announcement the other day that Brad Friedman of Brad Blog and Bradcast from KPFK is joining the network. He's one of my favorite folks in the media. As we were talking about in the chat room, he's been amazing on voting rights issues, and also he's got the Green Report, which is his syndicated environmental news report.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, great talent. You know, he's got folks like you involved, and Kenny Pickett, Turn Up the Night.
Mm-hmm.
Some amazing programming going on. And so after sort of watching what everybody else has been doing, I decided to launch my own radio program. And sure enough, here comes Kenny Pickett, and you know, giving me a good recommendation. He says, let's do it. So
that's a little applause for you, brother. Yes, participate. I can't wait. The Mark Taylor Canfield program coming to an independent, trustworthy media outlet near you soon.
Yes, the working title is the MTC Report, the news behind the news. And so we're going to try to provide some context to all these news stories that people are hit over the head with 24 hours a day by the major news networks. And also bring on a lot of independent voices that normally you wouldn't hear in the media, and give them a chance to speak out about the issues that they've been working on. I really want to get some folks involved from a homeless advocacy group in Seattle to talk about the fact that during the latest count of people without shelter in Seattle, they came up with a number of about 3,123, I believe, people who do not have shelter. Many of those folks are actually working and have jobs, but they just can't keep up with the rent and the cost of living in Seattle.
Yeah.
So another chance, you know, for independent voices to be heard in the media. And I'm so psyched, Jacob. I can't tell you. I was sitting in the chat room. I've been up all night working with the software that you told me about, putting some beta shows together just to see how it sounds, you know, and kind of develop my own style. And it's been a kick. I mean,
it's fun, isn't it, brother?
It is as much fun as being in the studio with a band. You know, it is so great to have access to this technology, and then now a network of people of like mind. And I was telling some of my friends that the best part of this is that throughout my life, I've been working for other people, other publishers, editors, producers, who, you know, sort of oversee me and sometimes won't let my stories be published or broadcast. And for the first time in my life, I'm actually working with a group of people I feel very comfortable with, that I can mutually support with good conscience, and know that, you know, these are the people that if I had the choice, I would choose to work with. And we're right at the ground floor of all of this. And, there's so much potential that it's a happy time. It's a blissful time for people who really want independent media to happen. So I'm psyched. I'm just glad that it's happening, and I'm going to, go forward and keep trying to push independent media as much as I can. And we're going to do it, man. There's nothing that's going to stop us now. I mean, it's done.
Keep up the good fight, buddy. Yes, sir. That's what it's all about. And it's always a pleasure to hear from you, Mark. And folks need to follow Mark's reporting on all, social media outlets, on Facebook, facebook.com/mtaylorcanfield, Twitter @mtaylorcanfield. Look for the MTC report coming soon, the news behind the news. We'll link to it at filterfreeradio.com. We'll partner up with Indie Media Weekly, maybe even get the MTC report on, the radioornot.com network. We can connect the independent network and create the alternative media outlets that people can trust. And we are already doing it. So we just need to connect the web, connect those interwebs together. And Mark, thanks again for calling in, bud. And I hope we can chat again soon.
Definitely, Jacob. And, it's so awesome to see how these networks are growing organically, not because of, a multi-million-dollar contracts or, business pressure from investors. This is all about people self-selecting the programming that they believe in and working together with people that support them. So that's an amazing breath of fresh air for me after having to fight for so many years with, like I said, my editors, publishers, producers, trying to control what I do. So this is amazing. I love what you guys are doing. I love what Kenny Pick is doing and the folks at Indie Media Weekly. And I think that this is the new paradigm. This is the future. It is now.
And like you mentioned, Mark, of course, real quick for the folks who are watching us on the video stream, I'm showing a picture of Mark Taylor Canfield and myself at the Progressive Radio Northwest. Look at Mark looking good there in the suit and tie, looking good, man. I want to mention, Mark, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago, this is also, part of the reasoning why we're here this morning in for Nicole Sandler. As folks know, Randy Rhoads is going off the air in a couple of weeks. And this week, Nicole Sandler is filling in for Randy Rhoads all week long, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, randyrhoads.com. I've got a little preview. If you're in the chat room right now at radioornot.com, Nicole is talking about what's coming up. Big show this afternoon on Randy Rhoads' show, and we'll preview that coming up in just a second. But this is also, when the Randy Rhoads of the world go off the air, that are, owned and operated by the Clear Channels and the, Bain Capitals of the world, when those things start to go away, and they are, KPOJ, KPTK, Green 960, WVKO, and the Randy Rhoads Show, this is truly the time for the Nicole Sandlers of the world, the Mark Taylor Canfields of the world, and the Filter Free Radios of the world to be there, because people need the information. People need the activism. People need these independent sources that we can trust. We are here, and we have to help people make that transition because, like we talked about at the forum, Mark, back in the day, Edward R. Murrow didn't have to teach us how to read the newspaper. People could kind of pick up the newspaper and read the news, and back then the newspaper had the news in it. Nowadays, we really have to help people in that learning curve and in that transition from going from the, the Randy Rhoads shows to the Nicole Sandler show and all of the above. So, Mark, I'm with you, buddy. I am so excited about the MTC report. So happy to be a part of it, man. Let us know anything we can do. Let's get connected. Let's get you on the air and broadcasting. And I can't tell you how many times we've had you on the show, man, and we'll get some feedback from listeners and say, "Oh, I love Mark. He's great." And he's doing good stuff. And I'm like, yeah, he needs his own show. And they're like, yeah, he does need his own show. And I'm like, yeah, it's coming. It's coming soon. It's good stuff.
Well, Jacob, you are a perfect spokesperson for this movement, and you are an example of what can be done. And so is Nicole. I love what she's done with Radio or Not. And I've been watching, and I've been watching people keep these authentic voices on the air, doing it their own way, DIY style, without the political or corporate control. And I'm loving it, man. I'm enjoying this new media every day. There's so much good stuff out there. We just need to work together and let people know that it's happening, and we'll be successful. There's no doubt in my mind that people are really, really hungry for independent, authentic voices on the air. So keep up the good work, you and Scott. I love you guys. Brothers from another mother, right?
Yes, sir. Right back at you, brother from another mother. Mr. Mark Taylor Canfield. Always a pleasure, buddy.
Hey, you guys take care, and I will definitely talk to you soon. So,
all right.
Good luck with the show this week. I'll be listening. So, hey,
fantastic.
Keep up the good work, Jacob.
Thank you, Mark. Right back at you, buddy. And keep up the good fight, man. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, bud. And I do want to mention again for folks who are just joining us, this is, of course, the Nicole Sandler Show, SHIT, sure happy it's Tuesday. We're broadcasting live. It is April 29th, 2014. Nicole Sandler over in the chat room at radioornot.com, along with all other 21 of us participating in a great conversation. It's all free, by the way. And if you haven't checked out radioornot.com in a little while, you need to. New website, new things, new message board, all sorts of cool stuff happening. And as I mentioned, big show, as Nicole mentioned, big show this afternoon. Nicole Sandler is filling in for Randy Rhoads, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Nicole has tracked down the former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia who got the gun laws changed there after the massacre and who warned Aussies against traveling to the United States. Okay? She tracked him down and has posted the travel advisory article, and they're going to do it. She's got the interview, and that's going to be coming up today on the Randy Rhoads Show. And you need to get over to radioornot.com to see Nicole's post about it, which is up already, and it's right there and explains everything. radioornot.com. And again, let me mention, the reality is Randy Rhoads is going off the air. And it's only a couple of weeks away. We read, Nicole's email that came out to everyone who signed up for the free email newsletter, Nicole Sandler's radioornot.com. We read the email on the air yesterday to open the show, and we talked about how, like we just said with Mark, as, the corporate state takes over and controls all of the information, because you and I now live in a nation where doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, governments destroy freedom, the press destroys information, universities destroy knowledge, churches destroy, religion destroys morals, and our banks destroy the economy. And as the corporate state takes over, and the Randy Rhoadses of the world who are supported by the corporate state, which does not want to support or sustain anything that can work against its own best interest, like progressive radio. When they start to disappear, as if you've been paying attention, like I know you have for the last 2 or 3 years, it's obvious, it's self-evident what is going on. This is not a conspiracy. This is, not only the right time for the Nicole Sandlers of the world and the filter-free radios of the world, but it is also, now we're going to have this responsibility to really step up and to be there and to...
Yeah, because resistance works on 2 tracks.
Yes.
And one, forming alternatives to the current state of corporate affairs. In other words, having alternatives to corporate media and other outlets for food, and et cetera. You fill in the blank, whatever systems you are under control of the corporate state, we have to have alternatives. And then once we form those alternatives, we no longer need the corporate state and their fascist oligarchs, and then we can fight and bring them down. And that's a 2-track resistance model, and that's how things work. And so, you really have to give people the alternative to go to. Otherwise, we're going to sit in front of television and watch ABC News all night.
Right, and here we are, the alternative, radioornot.com, filterfreeradio.com, SoFlowRadio.com, TalkRadio1.com, right? Here's a quote. I love this quote. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Let me repeat that. If there is no struggle, there is no progress.
Is that
let me finish the quote. I'm sorry. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are people who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one. It may be a physical one. It may be both a moral and physical struggle, but it is still and must be a struggle. Frederick Douglass, 1857.
Wow, there really is nothing new under the sun, is there?
Yeah, right. So there you go. It is the top of the hour, and we are anticipating our news update from Talk Radio News Service, talkradionews.com, to see what's happening in the world, what's happening in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And our good friends from the Talk Radio News Service will be giving that news update in just a couple of minutes. Coming up in the rest of this show, we are going to get into a really interesting article titled The Rhetoric of Violence. And the premise of the next hour's conversation is the only weapons we need to succeed are nonviolence, the truth, and transparency. We can change the world with nonviolence, truth, and transparency.
And just remember, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act.
So,
thank you, George Orwell.
So there you go. On that note, it is time to check in with the Talk Radio News Service, talkradionews.com, here this morning on the Nicole Sandler Show, live, radioornot.com.
I read the news today, oh boy.
And good morning. Who do we have on the line with us?
It's Bob Ney. How are you, Jacob?
Doing fantastic, Bob. Hope all is well on your end.
Pretty good.
Excellent. What's happening in the world? Good to hear from you.
I'll tell you what, there's a lot going on in the international scene. A couple of things. Secretary of State Kerry had used the word apartheid in reference to the Israeli government in a private meeting that caused a great stir. So he has apologized for the use of that comment. And he's got a very pro-Israeli record as a former senator, but he used the word and it caused, a problem in a very touchy time between Obama administration and Israel. So that kind of got squelched there, which was a good thing. But we could move on to the Ukraine, which just continues to be, outrageously out of control. The Ukraine government itself, and of course Putin just seems to be really calling the shots on this. We've looked at sanctions. European Union has instituted some sanctions, but right now it just seems there will be more of a diplomatic path that will have to be taken on this. And the president, our President Obama, pointed that out. He knows there's people that really want us to get aggressive, but he pointed out the Iraq War and the aggression there that turned out to be, an invasion over a lie. And he points out, rightfully so, that people got pretty worked up. We went and invaded for, quote, weapons of mass destruction, which didn't exist. So I think that he's got a rightful point on that one. Yeah. On a domestic note, the Supreme Court case, I think, is going to be fascinating. It's over cell phones and the fact that there was a man in Boston. They stopped him for an offense in his car. They got his cell phone. It rang 3 or 4 times. They tracked it down, and using that information without a warrant to acquire that information, then were able to go forth and get a warrant to go into his apartment and arrest him on drugs. Although, a drug charge is not a good thing, and the guy wasn't a good guy, but one has to put that aside and look at the Supreme Court argument. Is a cell phone like your car? You need a warrant to go through the car. Is it the same type of deal, or will there be no probable cause? If you have a cell phone and your taillight goes out, they can take that cell phone and start to surf through it and see what all you've done or who you've talked to.
Yeah, and that's a hell of a question, Bob, because I'm not the biggest fan of NSA personal GPS tracking devices, but I finally broke down this year and got my first smartphone simply for the purposes of the multimedia capabilities, the high definition audio, high definition video and camera, and to be able to tweet that out, if you're doing media on the go kind of thing. And everything is in the cell phone now, literally everything, from your email to your text messages to all of your private communications and all of that. And if that's just open willy-nilly, then I think some people might have a problem with that.
Well, that's right. And, of course, people tend to say, oh, well, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear.
Right.
Well, then that means randomly the police then should be able to just stop anybody that just kind of doesn't look very good on the streets today and just start to go through their cars. And that's not the way we operate. So I think this case is going to be fascinating because here you have a Supreme Court, frankly, with older people who, like myself, Jacob, don't understand technology.
Right.
And you have a Supreme Court starting to grapple with terms of, what's appropriate and what's not.
Yeah.
Technology and things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then, of course, the other thing that everybody's waiting on is what the NBA is going to say about Mr. Sterling.
Yes.
Today, what they're going to do about it. And Congress can't do anything with it. But, the NBA, I'm not sure. He's an owner. They can fine him $1 million, but he's a billionaire.
Right.
So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they deal with this.
I'm a big Portland Trailblazers fan. I'm up here in Portland, Oregon, and that aside, actually, I believe that Paul Allen, which is the Portland Trailblazers owner and of Microsoft fame, Paul Allen came out in a statement against Sterling's comments. So it's pretty cool to see another NBA owner to I guess go there. It's just it's a tragic disconnect. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday, and I'm actually kind of happy that things like that surface and things like that get into the conversation, and it allows, I guess, a little peek behind the curtain, I suppose, once in a while. So.
Well, that's true, and there's a great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did a wonderful piece. If anybody wants to look it up today, on the bigger picture of this thing, where this all stands. Just really a wonderful editorial on it. So maybe out of a bad thing, something better hopefully will occur.
There we go. Bob Ney, reporter with the Talk Radio News Service, talkradionews.com. Check it out. Bob, always a pleasure, and hope to chat soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And folks, again, need to check out talkradionews.com is the website. And again, I will mention, just as a moment of disclosure, the folks at Talk Radio News are good friends of mine, not only on a professional level, but also on a personal level. I do love them very much. They're good people. And, Ellen Ratner and Victoria Jones and Justin Duckham and Bob Ney, all of the above, they're doing good stuff. And, now, and in Bob's case, and he's a good guy now. And actually, I went to the White House Correspondents Radio and TV Correspondents dinner with Bob Ney once, and he was telling us some cool stories, and we'll just leave it at that. So, but that said, I also want to mention the website goatsfortheoldgoat.com, which is a website of Ellen Ratner's. And it is a way for you to make a difference to the people in South Sudan. And you can go to goatsfortheoldgoat.com to check that out. We are live in for the Nicole Sandler Show, the one and only Nicole Sandler, radioornot.com. Let's go ahead and run to a very short break here. We'll play the Jim Hightower report. We'll come back and continue this unfiltered, independent conversation. Your calls, 503-746-TALK. If you'd like to go on the air with us, 503-746-TALK. We'll continue next. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. RadioOrNot.com.
Questioning Authority Daily. The Nicole Sandler Show.
Hi, friends. This is Tom Hartman.
This is Stephanie Miller.
Hey, this is Hal Sparks.
I'm Brad Friedman. I approve of Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com.
Radio or Not.
Radio or Not.
RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com.
RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com.
Hey friends, I'm Jacob Dean of Filter Free Radio, your home for unfiltered news, activism, and sustainable solutions. Listen or watch Filter Free Radio live Mondays, 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern at our official website, filterfreeradio.com. It's a show about changing the status quo and mobilizing we the people to get active, participate, and be that change. Filter Free Radio is also available for free on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Facebook, Twitter, on Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com, and Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app. And now you can hear Filter Free Radio on We Act Radio, 1480 AM in Washington, D.C., weactradio.com. Help us be the change and make a difference. Please visit filterfreeradio.com and keep up the good fight.
Corporate powers that be keep thinking we'll stay hitched to their plow no matter how severely they lash us economically and kick us politically. But, to borrow one of George W.'s convoluted phrases, they're badly misunderestimating America's workaday people. As the Occupy Wall Street movement demonstrated, and as shown by the ongoing actions of fast food workers and others who've been shunted into poverty-wage jobs, we Americans are innately rebellious. In fact, from the Revolutionary Declaration of 1776 forward, rebellions are us. Shays' Rebellion in the 1780s, strikes by women mill workers in the early 1800s, the populist movement of the 1880s, and on into today's uprisings. We've never taken well to the moneyed powers grabbing more for themselves at our expense, and now they're grabbing more than ever. Wall Street elites, corporate profiteers, and inheritors of multi-billion-dollar fortunes are trying to divert our attention from their oligarchic greed by spending lots of money on PR campaigns, front groups, and politicians to tell us that big government is our problem. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. The ones knocking down the middle class and holding down the poor today are those same elites, profiteers, and heirs. The corporate media won't talk much about this reality, but a growing majority see it and is in a spreading rebellion against it, because after all, they're experiencing the abuse. This is Jim Hightower saying the great anthem by rocker Patti Smith pretty well sums up where we Americans are and where I think we're going. People have the power to dream, to rule, to wrestle the world from fools. Ordinary folks are awakening to the realization that the fools have seized power, and the folks are now making moves and movements to seize the fools by their short hairs and reclaim our dreams.
What do the corporate powers from Wall Street to Walmart have in common? They hate the Hightower Lowdown. You can see why at www.hightowerlowdown.org.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to The Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Bill Maher, you're here in Miami on Friday night. You're doing a show at the Fillmore at the Jackie Gleason Theater. They just renamed this theater the Fillmore. And they put up a couple of psychedelic posters. So I guess...
Was it the theater Jackie did his TV show from?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
What I hear they did is put up two of those old Bill Graham posters and renamed it.
Yeah, I can't think of two different icons of show business.
Yeah, really.
Bill Graham and Jackie Gleason.
Yeah, why they just didn't play up the Jackie Gleason aspect, I don't know. But then again, this is South Florida.
Right. Okay.
Welcome to it.
I feel warned.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
This is Liberal Justice Radio.
Now here's a place you always meet a lot of friends.
Liberal Justice Radio.
RadioOrNot.com and SoFloRadio.com present The Nicole Sandler Show. Truth to power, baby.
Are you sure this is legal? I don't know. It's fun though, isn't it?
We are having fun. It's the Nicole Sandler Show, broadcasting live. SHIT. Sure happy it's Tuesday. It is April 29th, 2014, live at radioornot.com, SoFloRadio.com, TalkRadio1.com, FilterFreeRadio.com, also live on Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app and TuneIn.com. However you are joining us, so good to be with you. If you'd like to participate in the conversation, the telephone number 503-746-TALK. 503-746-TALK. If you don't have a chance to get in during the show, you can call that number anytime, 24/7, and leave us your comments and all that good stuff. So there is that. There's also all sorts of things happening in the activism worlds. Please check out activatehub.org, activatepdx.org. Check out popularresistance.org. Some great calendars. Also check out Washington Peace Center for what's happening in Washington, D.C. Lots of great activism. We're 2 days away from May Day. I hope you're going to get out into the streets and get active on May Day. That's very important. That's a very important day. And there's a lot of important days of activism that we can talk about. One of them this week or last week was Earth Day, and seriously, fuck Earth Day. No, really, I mean fuck Earth Day. Not the first Earth Day 44 years ago, but, you know, everything that day has become since. The greenwashing. And, you know, it's seriously, fuck it. And it's time to end the dishonesty, time to end the deception. Stop lying to yourselves and stop lying to the children. Stop lying to the future generations that you do not care and you do not hold any moral obligation to. Stop pretending that the crisis can be solved and that the planet can be saved, that the business, more or less as usual, what progressives and environmentalists have been doing for 40-odd years now or more, is morally or intellectually tenable. Let go of the pretense that environmentalism as we know it, virtuous green consumerism, affluent low-carbon localism, head in the sand, conservationism, feel-good greenwashed capitalism, comes anywhere near the radical response our situation requires. So I've had it with Earth Day, and I am with Wynn Stevenson, who wrote this article, Fuck Earth Day, Let This Be the Last for the Nation. We found it at commondreams.org. We posted a link to it on our Facebook page. I just want to read one more paragraph, and then we'll move on to Chris Hedges, because that's what Scott wants to get to. And he is our super-duper awesome brother from another mother and producer of the show, so he also gets a say in what we talk about. And you get a say, too. You get a say, too. 503-746-TALK.
That's a good article, too.
Well, yeah, Scott, you sent me this. I didn't see this until you posted it on the Facebook page.
You know, it's actually, since I read it, it came out, last Wednesday, I think. It's now the top 5 most read articles on Common Dreams this past week. It's pretty good.
Here's another part that I want to read real quick from this article. The question is not whether we're going to stop global warming or solve the climate crisis. It is whether humanity will act quickly and decisively enough now to save civilization itself in any form worth saving. Whether any kind of stable, humane, and just future, any kind of just society is still possible. We know that if the governments of the world actually wanted to address this situation in a serious way, they could. We could. Indeed, a select few, such as Germany, have already begun to do so. It can be done, and at relatively low cost. But the fossil fuel industry and those who are doing its bidding have been engaged in a successful decades-long effort to sow confusion, doubt, and opposition and propaganda into your brain. And this is why we all drive cars that run on fossil fuel, and to obstruct any serious policies that might slow the warming or their profits and buy us time. And as I've said elsewhere, let it be clear about what this means. At this late date, given what we know and what we've known for decades, to willfully obstruct any serious response to global warming is to knowingly allow entire countries and cultures to disappear. It is to rob the poorest and most vulnerable people on the planet of their land, their homes, their livelihoods, even their lives and their children's lives and their children's children's lives, and it's all for the money, and it's all for the political power. And these, my friends, are crimes. These are crimes against the earth. These are crimes against humanity. Oh, are you shocked? Are you shocked by this? Shocked, I tell you, shocked. The same industry and the same people committing these crimes, while we subsidize them for their trouble, are getting away with murder along the fence lines and front lines for generations. You need to read the rest of this article by Wynn Stevenson, originally published at The Nation. He's a freelance journalist. He's a climate activist, Wynn Stevenson. He's a former editor at The Atlantic, at the Boston Globe. He contributes frequently to Grist and a lot of other outlets and has written about climate and culture for the Globe. Grist, I'm sorry. And has written about climate change for the Globe and New York Times and The Nation and Slate. And he's on Twitter at WEN Stevenson. So check it out. Good stuff. Yeah, I'm with you, brother. Let's stop the greenwashing. And maybe it's maybe it's because I'm in Portland, Oregon, where there's a ton of greenwashing going on. It's like, oh yeah, Portland, they must be, you know, green and environmental, and we put on, you know, that cover. But in the reality is, you know, we're all hypocrites too. So
If you scroll down to the bottom of that article on Common Dreams, I have a nice. I posted a good comment there. I think a lot of people will like. But it speaks to the consumerism in our society. And Naomi Klein has a really good article out this week, basically titled "The Change Within." The obstacles we face are not just external as it relates to climate change, and it's essentially that we are a society founded on consumption. I mean, not founded on, but we are currently consumers, and it's as American as apple pie. And so to challenge people to use less and consume less is like challenging one's old held beliefs that's so fundamentally anti-American we can't do that. But in turn, we have to do that. And so how do we overcome the stigma that people are attached themselves to buying things, and that we, you know, it's literally like saying, oh, you know, you spend your entire lives consuming. That's all the propaganda on television and ads and everything you see, read, and hear tells you to do, that you're worthless without these brands, and that, you know, that you're a better person because you drive a nicer car, or you wear brand name jewelry, and when you wear designer clothes, and because that makes you a better person. And that's what our society essentially dictates to everybody, you know, in terms of we are consumers. We are not individuals or human beings. We are consumers. And so telling people to consume less and to be more conscious and to do things that are otherwise fundamentally anti-American as far as we know. And it's a real challenge, and it comes from being self-critical and turning the criticism of the world around you inward and saying, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? And then try and change that yourself, and then in turn encourage everybody else to make the changes that you've made, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So it's a long road. Yeah. But I think being aware of our own hypocrisies, as you pointed out, is a really important first step.
I want to mention, I was just handed a note that says the scroll that's been running across the top of the screen says that we are live on April 98th, 2014, instead of April 29th, 2014. Nice. And that's what happens when I get into a rush right before the show. I try to, oh yeah, I forgot to do this. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. So I fixed that. In case anyone wants to know, the date today is April 29th, 2014, not the 98th. So anyways, for that, just a programming note there. And brother from another mother, Skeptical Scott, let's talk about how the only tools we need to succeed are nonviolence, truth, and transparency, and the rhetoric of violence, which comes to us from the one and only Chris Hedges, our favorite author and blogger. You need to follow his weekly column at truthdig.com. There's a link to it at filterfreeradio.com, as well as read some of his amazing work like Empire of Illusion and Death of the Liberal Class and
Days of Destruction, Days of Revolt.
Thank you.
War is a force that gives us meaning. Losing Moses on the Freeway. He's got quite a bit of them. I like that Losing Moses on the Freeway. It's a good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah, they're all good. I mean, he's essentially a social critic. He's a journalist and a former seminarian. It's just, you know, he's one of these there's very few people in our times, in our lives, especially today, in this corporate totalitarian system that we live under, who will actually be fundamentally opposed and fundamentally, I guess, adverse to and explain it to us in ways that we otherwise will not hear, and words that we otherwise don't ever hear put together. What is really happening to us, what can be done about it, what must be done about it.
Yeah.
And so it's identifying the disease rather than just going from symptom to symptom, and then addressing what can be done about that disease and doing it in historical context so that we understand. I mean,
right.
You know, if we don't know your history, doing and repeat it, and we're certainly repeating it. I mean, the oligarchs, if you look at the movie that we posted on our blog, Park Avenue, where it points out that there was one building on Park Avenue in New York City.
And you can watch that on Netflix.
Oh yeah, it's a good little short hour and 10-minute documentary, where you can just see that the same exact building that the Koch brothers and these other titans of Wall Street live in right now, these multi-billionaires, it's the single building with the most concentration of wealth in the world. That they all live in this one apartment building. This is the same exact building that the robber barons lived in at the turn of the century and during the Industrial Revolution. And this, the same
irony.
robber barons. Yeah, I mean, it's things. The more things change, the more they stay the same, and that's the nature of capitalism. And so when you start to address the fundamentals of the system, rather than try and say, well, we can work within the system and reform it, when in fact the system itself is the problem. One that oppresses those for the benefit of a few, oppresses the many for the benefit of a few.
That's exactly what Shama Savant said in our exclusive interview, which we aired yesterday. And if you missed that, it's at filterfreeradio.com. Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole taking a much more broader understanding to things. And it's difficult, especially when you're living paycheck to paycheck and every day is a struggle. As anybody knows, poverty is just one crisis after the next.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're all so fragile that at any given time, anything, an illness or an accident or you name it, just, destroys our entire world because we can no longer afford to fix these issues, be it health, be it transportation, you name it. And so there's just everything. Life is so fragile, and it's getting more and more fragile as we go forward and are squeezed, as the middle class and the working poor are squeezed even farther and farther in the name of profits. I mean, if anyone, as everyone well knows, it's like how much money goes to the military-industrial complex versus how much money goes to social uplift. It's insanity. We all know it's insanity.
Yep.
And the disconnect is real. And the thing to remind us, to be important to remind us all about, and that's what's so important about this article by Hedges and the rhetoric of violence, is that the goal of the very wealthy elites is to turn us against each other. It's to keep us fighting amongst ourselves while they continue to rape and pillage us. Because if we were to actually stop and realize that red, white, black, or brown, poor, middle class, even people who make a couple $100,000 a year are all in the same boat, because these wealthy billionaires who are worth thousands of millions of dollars control everything. They control our justice system, they control the media, they control our education, they control our infrastructure, they control our health care. They own us. They are literally owners of our society, and it's time to do something about it before we end up in a complete fascist state. I mean, I would say there's already a little bit of fascism going on. If anybody's ever been illegally searched and seized, they know that obviously the Constitution doesn't apply to us anymore unless you have the money. But as though Bob Ney pointed out in that one instance about the New York guy who was stopped, and
yeah,
I mean, that's everything about that was fundamentally unconstitutional.
Right.
But that doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
I mean,
Well, and that's part of and that's part of the truth and part of the transparency, which is part of the weapons that we need to use in our fight in the struggle. As we read the quote from Frederick Douglass, there is no progress without struggle. The other weapon that we have at our disposal is nonviolence, and we don't really always talk about the nonviolence thing, but this was the subject of Chris Hedges' article, and I want to read the first paragraph, and then we'll talk about that, and then I want to skip down to the last couple of paragraphs and read that because it's just amazing. But he starts off, this is Chris Hedges writing at truthdig.com, The Rhetoric of Violence. Quote, at least 9 people were killed and at least 35 others were wounded in shootings across Chicago last week. On Thursday, police announced that a man had been arrested on charges of firing a number of motorists recently, wounding 3 of them on Kansas City area highways. On April 13th, 3 people, including a child, were murdered at 2 Jewish-affiliated facilities in Overland Park, Kansas, leading to the arrest of a white supremacist. On April 12th, armed militias in Nevada got the federal government to retreat, allowing rancher Cliven Bundy to continue to graze his cattle on public land without paying his fair share. And all this happened over a span of only 9 days in the life of a country where more than 250 people are shot every day. In America, violence and the threat of lethal violence are ways that they use to communicate. Violence, the preferred form of control by the state, because it's either controlled by fraud or by force, and when the fraud is exposed, all they have left is the force. Violence, the preferred form of the control by the corporate state, is an expression of our hatred, self-loathing, and lust for vengeance, and this bloodletting will increasingly mark a nation in terminal decline. And then all of the amazing backstory about how we must begin to speak in the language of revolution and not accommodation. We must direct the rage that grips huge swaths of the population, not against the oppressed, but against the structures of corporate power that create oppression. We will have to begin from scratch, for America has no revolutionary intellectual tradition, with the exception of Thomas Paine. We have produced notable anarchists, everyone from Emma Goldman and Noam Chomsky above. We have an array of great black radicals, including W.E.B. Du Bois, Malcolm X, Cornel West, Dr. Cornel West, as astute about the evils of empire as white supremacy. We once had some fine socialists, Eugene V. Debs among them, but we lack genuine revolutionists such as Karl Marx. And because of this, we are losing the class war. Oh, you're talking about class warfare there.
You're damn right we are.
The war is on, brothers and sisters, and we're not winning.
I'm not winning. That's what's so good about. That's what's so effective, I guess, about the corporate media is that if you were to actually watch any of these so-called news outlets, and I can't believe they're allowed to call themselves news. And I'm speaking, of course, of any cable news. It doesn't matter what entity they subscribe to or you subscribe to. The point is that they instantly say, "Oh, this is a third rail. You can't speak about class war." Well, that is in fact throughout history of civilization and humanity. All it's been struggle has always been about, and to ignore the fact that the very wealthy have always wanted to take more at the expense of the very few. I mean, of the very poor, is to ignore a reality and to ignore the actual disease. So we can focus on gay rights, we can focus on legalizing pot, or fill in the blank of the tragedy celeb that happened this week, and people want to spend their entire waking moments talking and poring over it. The fact of the matter is,
not that we don't need marriage equality and legalized marijuana, which we do, but as Scott's saying, that's secondary.
It is secondary, and let's face it, when things get really bad, all those gains will be wiped out instantly. That's the whole point. I mean, it's literally like, and Hedges actually mentions it this week in his article, where he told this week's article, by the way, is called "The Crime of Peaceful Protest."
Which is another good one, and we'll get to that on the next filter-free radio.
It all relates
or something.
because it's all part of the struggle. I mean, It's literally all relating to not only can you not resist, but when you do resist, you would be criminalized, even though you're theoretically exercising your First Amendment rights. But who says we have a constitution anymore? Right. It's just, and there's the whole notion that, we're still a democracy, we still have justice. No. If you really believe that, then go out and protest and get arrested and see what happens to you.
Right.
As you find until you step out of line. As soon as you step out of line, you will incur the full force and weight against the police state against you, and you will lose all your rights.
And that's
just for being exercising your so-called First Amendment.
And that's why we have to maintain the nonviolent moral high ground always, to eventually become a martyr, if you will. Because they will eventually use force when the fraud has been completely exposed, and we cannot use force in retaliation, because then we become no better than what we are fighting. And also, it's a good thing to mention that we're not fighting for a big, gigantic, revolutionary change to happen all at once either. The corporate state is not going to be dismantled tomorrow or over the course of next week or next month. Because if it were to happen like that, then you would see an extreme violent repercussion of that, and a kind of a counter revolution, a violent counter revolution. The reality is we need to maintain these revolutionary positions to create incremental change slowly, and implement that slowly. and it starts by you and I growing our own food in our backyard or in our kitchen, you know, and getting off of, you know, GMO Monsanto, and then we, you know, sell our car and ride public transportation, and then we quit our job at the corporation and go to work for the co-op, and then we, you know, and then pretty soon we've created the revolution in our own lives, and pretty soon we begin to benefit from that in our own lives, and pretty soon our neighbors and our friends and our communities say, hey, that's pretty cool what you're doing over there, I want to do that, and then they participate in it as well, and then eventually you tell 5 friends, they tell 5 friends, they tell 5 friends, and we change the fucking world. That's
well,
how
the reality is too is that it will no longer become a choice.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole notion of not needing the current system that we live under, because once you no longer need it, when it does collapse, you think, well, good, it's about time. And then, unfortunately, for those who are not prepared for this collapse, which as anybody who's reading any kind of article, I mean, look at even Paul Krugman admits it. You know, and it seeps into the corporate media, and someone like Paul Krugman actually says, you think you're worried about oligarchy, you ain't seen nothing yet. Then you know things are bad and going to get worse. And if anyone knows about the bailouts of Wall Street, we know that instead of nationalizing the banks and writing down their debt and restructuring the entire system, they've become larger and more and taken over more control, right, and been given more money, and they're just fleecing the rest of us. And so, I mean, if it's hilarious, because I talk to people who want to buy a house. I'm like, well, I think theoretically, if you owned a home and the banks all went bankrupt, you probably get to keep that money, keep that house free and clear. So it's probably not a bad idea. Yeah. They're like, what? I'm like, but because the fact of the matter is the banks are all insolvent to the tune of 30 to 1. But anyway, I digress. The point is, the point really is the system itself is unsustainable, and it is in terminal decline. And if anyone's even the least bit aware, maybe not aware of what's going on, the symptoms have become overwhelming. Yeah. Those symptoms have a cause, and the cause is capitalism.
Yeah, and we talked about that on Filter Free Radio episode number 113, Welcome to the Oligarchy. And we even talked about and played Paul Krugman's so-called public on-air revelation of, this is going to be a problem.
Thanks, it's like, thanks, Paul. It's about time you woke up.
Yeah, right.
If you haven't listened to Richard Wolff at all recently, then you would know this is nothing new.
Ooh,
I love Richard Wolff, by the way. Richard Wolff, David Harvey, even Michael Hudson. Economist Michael Hudson is on the Real News, realnews.com quite every week, and he gives a good weekly update. And of course, Richard Wolff's economic update is available on WBAI.org, and he does a weekly 1 hour long update from New York City, and that's always every Saturday at noon. And I would encourage people to, if they haven't done anything about Richard Wolff or anything about the current crisis, to go to YouTube and watch Capitalism Hits the Fan, which is Richard Wolff's seminal work about where we are in our current economic crisis. And it's at least, 4 or 5 years old now?
Yeah. If you're just joining us, this is Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott of Filter Free Radio. We broadcast our show Filter Free Radio live Monday evenings, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com network. And Nicole is in live for Randy Rhodes all of this week, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, randyrhodes.com. And this is, of course, as you know, the Randy Rhodes Show is going off the air in a couple of weeks. This is going to be the last time Nicole Sandler's filling in for Randy Rhodes, and it is not a week to miss. So randyrhodes.com, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern is where you can find Nicole today and all of this week. And it is an honor and privilege to be in for Nicole, as always, to help alleviate that workload a little bit. And because it's hard to do 2 shows every day of the week, and so we help out a little bit. Nicole's going to be back day after tomorrow here in the morning as well, so she's going to be doing double duty on Thursday, but she's in for Randy Rhodes all this week, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Scott and I are talking about how the only tools we need to change the world are nonviolence, truth, and transparency. This topic comes to us from the brilliant article by the brilliant Chris Hedges at truthdig.com, which came out on the anniversary of the BP oil disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, by the way. The rhetoric of violence. Let me read near the end of the article. Chris Hedges writes this: the government is banking on the fact that we are not hardwired for revolution. The state, and for this reason, permits the population to load itself up with weapons, including assault rifles, because it understands that they are almost never turned against the centers of power, nor should they really be. Nonviolence is the answer. There are some 310 million firearms in the United States, including 114 million handguns, 110 million rifles, 86 million shotguns. There is no reliable data on the number of military-style assault weapons in private hands, but one estimate is 1.5 million. The United States has the highest rate of gun ownership in the world, an average of 90 per 100 people. We shoot each other every day. We shoot ourselves every day. The people we send off to go participate in our legalized mass murdering wars come back and they shoot themselves every day. Of the 282 people shot every day in the United States, according to the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence, 32 die in murders and 51 commit suicide every day. And as we are here right now building a revolutionary consciousness, we must never place our faith in violence. Even as we understand that violence, especially by vigilance, criminals and militarized police forces will be used against us. And our strength is our truth. And this truth terrifies the powerful elites. Truth, not force, not violence, is the real power of revolutionaries. It is an understanding of the truth about the decadence of the Tsarist regime that led soldiers in the 1917 February Revolution in Russia against their officers, leading to the removal of Nicholas II. It was similar truths having finally penetrated the military's doomed Louis XVI, the Shah of Iran, the Cuban dictator as well. Revolutions do not succeed because of violence, although violence is often can be a component of revolutions. We need to be aware of that. The glorification of violence as principal agent of change is a lie, and revolutions succeed because of revolutionary thinking. It's all up here. Such consciousness takes years to build. The conclusions that Skeptical Scott and I are at today didn't happen yesterday. It's taken us 2.5 years to get to where we are today on Filter Free Radio.
More like 10, but okay.
Yeah, right. Well, at least for me, we've been doing the show for 2.5 years. Yeah, really about 5 to 10 years.
I've been reading and trying to understand our society for my entire life, but in more detail and in this vein for at least 5 or 6, 7, 8 years since long before Obama got elected.
This is how Chris Hedges ends the article here. It leads those on the inside to defect to the revolution, and once that happens, state power crumbles. Muslims, undocumented workers, homosexuals, liberals, feminists, intellectuals, African Americans, and all of the above will increasingly suffer the wrath of vigilante violence as the nation becomes more restive. Liberal institutions, their credibility shredded because of the myopic support for neoliberalism, will become irrelevant. Violent retribution, a perverted Christianity, I can't say that word, and the celebration of a mythic Anglo-Saxon history will sever sections of the population from reality, enticing them into an American fascism. Oh my goodness, I said the F word.
Wow.
The real F word. And this, my friends, is what is coming. It cannot be fought with counter-violence. It can only be fought with ideas, and we had better prepare. Chris Hedges, The Rhetoric of Violence, truthdig.com. And it's good stuff. So, that's just, and the reason why I wanted to have that little conversation is anyone who might be passing along and never heard of us before and, oh my God, these guys are talking about revolution and rebellion and overthrowing the corporate state. And let's just preface that by saying our only weapons we are going to use to do all of that is nonviolence, truth, and transparency. Just for the record. So, and that's all we need. It works.
There is. Yeah, because I mean, even that's the whole thing, and that's what's so good about this week's article. He writes called "The Crime of Peaceful Protest," where he interviews Cecily McMillan, and I encourage people to go to TruthDig and click on his most recent report, where his interview with her, and then of course go to the link where she is interviewed by Amy Goodman 2 years ago on the 6-month anniversary of Occupy Wall Street, where she was brutalized by police. The interview with her on Amy Goodman, if you visually see her 2 days after she was beaten by the police and imprisoned for 48 hours without so much as being told what her charges were, you can see what happens. And all she was doing was sitting in a park and commemorating the 6-month anniversary. It's remarkable because this woman was brutalized and physically and mentally scarred. And she was, damaged as a result of doing simply a peaceful protest. And that's kind of the point. And the point basically is that the truth and honesty and the nonviolence aspect of it is what people can coalesce around. I mean, if you look at what happened in Madison, Wisconsin, when we had people sitting in the Capitol, it was everybody from teachers and firefighters and police, and the police were participating because they knew that the government was gonna shut them out and cut their pensions.
99%.
Yeah, it's like the whole. That's what makes the push for a living wage or raising the minimum wage such a poignant topic, because you can galvanize people around that one issue. I think we can all agree that we're all not making enough money to get by.
Yep. And that 15 doesn't go far enough.
Right, but it doesn't matter what your political spectrum, if you will. If you're a gun owner of America in Texas, you're not making enough money, and it doesn't mean I mean. So it's like whatever you consider yourself. If you're watching Fox News, it's the point of the matter is that we're all being squeezed.
Right.
And so by galvanizing a general population of middle and lower class and working poor into this struggle, you eviscerate these so-called political lines. And what you do is you actually push people into the consciousness of the class war in which we're all engaged or not engaged. I mean, certainly the very wealthy are engaged in it. I think the rest of us are not. But you're able to get people together, and that's the whole point. The point is that it's not political, it's economic.
Yeah.
And we're all in this struggle together. So,
if I can, I want to add just a couple of personal comments on the topic. For me personally, I'm not anti-gun, and actually I'm very pro-Second Amendment in the original context in which they thought about the Second Amendment. The idea that everyone should have some sort of arms to protect themselves because we don't need a standing army in times of peace. We don't need to waste millions and billions, and now at this point trillions of dollars on wars in times of peace when we're not at war. And so we shouldn't have a standing army. We shouldn't be wasting all this money on the militarization of the planet, but we are. And they thought that, well, if we're not in war why don't everyone be able to have a gun? And that way, in case, if shit hits the fan, people can get together and form community militias and try to, defend their communities. And then when we transition ourselves from times of peace into times of war, if it becomes necessary. I'm for that idea. I like that idea because then that allows the people, to take control of them, of their selves and their lives and their country's spending on, the military-industrial complex back into our own control, right? So there's that. I'm not like anti-gun. I'll be the first to admit that I own firearms as well for hunting purposes. I come from a long line of Native Americans. My great-great-grandmother was full-blood Cherokee Indian from North Carolina in the Smoky Mountains, and for me personally, there is something to being able to provide my own thing for myself, to be self-sustainable, and I like to eat an occasional salmon or an occasional deer. And I mean, that's once in the blue moon kind of thing. But, and before you call PETA, just know that I am, probably one of the most radical environmentalists you may ever encounter, along the lines of Derek Jensen, because I'm with Derek Jensen on how we need to protect the source of our own lives. We become so disconnected from the planet and greenwashed by, oh, let's celebrate Earth Day by hugging a tree. Why don't you plant a tree? Well, I ain't
go
got
buy a Prius.
I ain't got time to plant a tree. I ain't got money to buy a Prius. So, so you know, it spirals, and you know, I just wanted to add those 2 points on guns for me personally, because that's where I'm coming from. So before you call the NRA,
I think the funny thing about it is, and Hedges outlines it in the article we just read, is that, you know, once these so-called vigilantes, or these gun nuts, if you want to call them that, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, as soon as the army is called in, you could be sitting in your house with an arsenal of weapons. As soon as the military is brought to bear on you, you're going to come out with your hands up and leave your weapons in the house.
Right.
Because let's face it, you obviously would never ever going to have the amount of military hardware that the so-called military-industrial complex has. And when that is brought to bear against these vigilante groups, for this jackass in Nevada, they'll scatter like crows. I mean, that's the whole point of this.
Yeah.
This gun, but the security, the false security that's given to these individuals, because they know that things are bad, that they know they're being squeezed, and so instead of blaming those who are doing the squeezing, they imbibe in the propaganda, and they blame the other, whether it's race, or it's usually race, by the way, or other people who are actually themselves victims. But it's easy to, you know, if you understand hierarchies and you understand it as a bully, you can pick on those weaker than you. And so if someone feels weak, as a lot of these people, these right-wing gun nuts do, they pick on those weaker than them, and that'll be, in this case, blacks, Muslims, and Hispanics, and anybody else who's being oppressed, even more than they are at this point. So, I mean, another thing I want to bring up, too, is it's really good. It's, you know, I know we harp on Chris Hedges a lot, and it's because personally he's sort of the impetus for our show, where he has said that no act of rebellion is too small, and if nobody is listening, it doesn't matter because you're still doing the right thing.
Yep.
That's sort of where we started doing a show with no one listening.
Yep.
You know, so it's like because telling the truth is a revolutionary act.
Yeah.
And it's time for people to know the truth, and so he has a really good video. This week on truthdig.com. It's actually from the 26th. It's titled, "We're either going to step off the board or they're going to kill us." And the board being the chessboard that we're playing on, and you have to just step off the board. But yeah, it's him, and it's Mr. Fish.
Okay.
Actually, they do a good speech, and man,
Mr. Fish is a great cartoonist, by the way.
Oh yeah, he's my favorite cartoonist, by the way. And the truths that he tells in cartoons.
I don't know. I kind of like Ted Rall too.
Ted Rall is good as well. But the point of this video that he talks about, if anyone ever gets a chance to watch it, it's overwhelming because he just literally is on the microphone. It's like group therapy where he's talking about, he's a former war correspondent.
Right.
And he talks about his firsthand experiences of war, and he talks about stories about, you know, being on your knees in a cornfield with your hands on your head for a half hour, waiting to hear back from the rebel leaders whether they're going to be killed or not.
Right.
And that's sort of the reality of war. And the notion that what we glorify as war is just propaganda, and even the most worst case, visceral understanding of war doesn't even get at how bad it really is until you're there. Because it's just, I would encourage people to watch it because it's the understanding that he conveys based on his first-hand experience of it is life-changing, I think, and will be for a lot of people, because you have a new understanding of what war is really about, and this glorification of violence that we live under in our society, because they have to glorify it, otherwise there's no rationalization for what we're doing around the world. I mean, let's face it, we have 20 military bases in Germany. Right? Isn't Germany one of our allies? I mean, how many military bases does France, Germany, Sweden, how many military bases does any country have in our country? I mean, it's what we are. We are an empire. We are not a democracy. You cannot be both. You sure as hell cannot be an empire and democracy at the same time.
And we are now an oligarchy as well.
Oh yeah, it's part of being an empire.
Yeah.
That's how empires function. If you ever understand the Star Wars, oligarchy is a hierarchy. Empires are hierarchy. And they're run by a select few wealthy billionaires who make money off of death. And right now, let's face it, if we had a draft, we wouldn't have these wars. But the fact of the matter is everyone going to war right now is poor because they're desperate in need of jobs and the hope of actually getting an education. And they join the army and they go off and be killed. And who are they fighting for? They're fighting for ExxonMobil. They're fighting for Halliburton. They're fighting just for the sake to justify and foster the continuation of these military contractors who need to rationalize, building and selling, more and more tanks and airplanes and all these things that our taxpayer dollars go to fund this military-industrial complex, which is, by the way, 60% of our government's budget. And that's what we know on the books. I mean, the black budget that we don't know about is, I'm sure, just as big. And yet here we are all suffering without good health care, without well-paying jobs. A lot of us are becoming homeless or insecure in our homes because we cannot, pay the rent every week or every month or whatever. And it's bad. And that's sort of what Hedges is talking about. I mean, he's such a social critic because when you understand that what you've been told your entire life, and it's sort of the turmoil or what do you call it? I guess one of the results of war and those who've gone to war and come home is that the disconnect for any veteran who's ever been to war, once they come home and realize that everything they've been told about our society is a lie, and that they come back and they try and tell people what they've learned and what they've experienced, and no one wants to hear it, well, then they become just ostracized and homeless and suicidal and psychotic. Because if you talk to any soldier, they'll tell you that it's not what they saw, but what they did that is most troubling and most traumatic for them.
Yeah.
And I've had a first-hand experience of talking to a former military soldier. And it's one of those, fleeting conversations with strangers that you have in your life that you never forget. Where this gentleman talked about Vietnam, and specifically, where a woman and her 3 children walked in front of his machine gun, and he just gunned them down. And it's sort of like, and he just, lives with that his entire life, killing innocent people for what? For nothing. I mean, that's...
And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Skeptical Scott, this is why you need to tune into Filter Free Radio. If you're digging what Scott's putting down, if you're picking it up, what he's putting down, filterfreeradio.com, Monday evening, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm not trying to cut you off, brother, but we only have a couple of...
Go on for hours, so yeah. Someone's got to.
There's a but coming. We've only got a couple minutes left in the show, and I'm so with you, dude. Jay Jewel in the chat room at radionaut.com and I have chatted a little bit about our disagreement about, should we reinstate a draft? And Jay Jewel is strongly against reinstating the draft. And I like to take the position of, if the military-industrial complex is going to engage in war with voluntary soldiers, then it may be a way that we can create more opposition and create, kind of a Vietnam-like anti-war movement would be to have people's asses be on the line again. And to, when you come out of high school, if you don't have a job and if you're the only child and, or whatever and all, or if you're not the only child, you can have your ass put on the line. And then, unfortunately, the tragedy here is people don't get active and don't participate until it personally affects them, until it hits home. And then they realize, oh, it's too late. Maybe I should have done something about it. Having your ass be on the line in that situation will create the awareness and create the opposition that we need in today's world of no one gives a shit, no one cares anymore. That will create the anti-war movement and stop the wars, in my opinion.
It would also bridge the disconnect. I mean, it's something that happens extemporaneously, and we're vaguely aware of it, and we don't hear about it unless we search out information about it. And that, certainly the nightly news just glosses over it, and there's nothing more, full of bullshit than saying thank a soldier for their service. Right. I mean, it's like those soldiers don't want to hear that crap. They know they know the truth.
And we're totally on the same page. The reality is both of us, none of us want more war. None of us want more people to die in unnecessary.
But we want the disconnect to be ended. And we want the hypocrisy and the propaganda to end. We want people to actually understand. That's why I'm really encouraging people. I swear to God, if you go over to truthdig.com and watch this hour-long video with Chris Hedges called War on the Battlefield for Oil in Our Minds.
Right.
War on the Battlefield for Oil in Our Minds. It's just, he talks about his dealings with our civilization's war against itself in all its ugly forms. And it's really, you'll think differently. I mean, it's viscerally heart and gut wrenching, and I couldn't watch the whole thing at one time. And all he's doing is talking. I mean, but the visual, the visually, what's what I'm looking for? The information he conveys is visceral. It makes you feel sick to your stomach.
Right.
Because you can actually close your eyes and imagine what it would be like. And even then, it doesn't get at it. I mean, it doesn't even get at how bad it really is. But you at least get some sense of it's far worse than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. My point is I'm 26 years old, and most of my friends and people that I know that who are also around my age don't give a shit about protesting anything about the war. We don't care. We're disconnected. The only thing we are connected to is our iPhone or our, whatever, our tablet. And
that's not by accident either.
And the reality is, people are going to die if we have a voluntary military-industrial complex, and people are going to die if we have a, forcibly selected military-industrial complex. But the latter is going to create more of an opposition and more of a willingness to fight the military-industrial complex, and that is exactly what we need. Now, I'd hate to see it to have to go to that kind of thing in order to motivate us to do something, but clearly, I think, that's what we need. So on that note, unfortunately, time flies when you're having fun, and time has flown by this morning. We are flat out of time on this episode of the Nicole Sandler Show. I've got to thank everyone who makes this show possible. Our one and only brother from another mother, Mr. Skeptical Scott. Love you, buddy. Couldn't do it without you, man. Thanks for getting up early and doing this with us this morning. And do it again tomorrow. Hey, right? So we'll be here again tomorrow in for Nicole Sandler. Nicole is in for Randy Rhodes nationwide, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, randyrhodes.com. All of this week, the last time that Nicole's going to be in for Randy, so it's not a week to miss. randyrhodes.com, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Check it out. Big thanks to Nicole Sandler for the honor, for the privilege, for the pleasure of filling in on her show on radioornot.com. Thanks to Kenny Pick for syndicating us on Liberal Justice Radio this morning. Thanks to Kevin McLeod of Incompetech Dano of Dano Songs for music production. Thanks to our webmaster, website guru, Shano. Huge thanks to you, our friends, our listeners, for liking the show and spreading the word and helping us grow. Big thanks and shout out to everyone in the chat room. Love you guys. And thanks to Mark Taylor Canfield for calling in during this episode. You can always make your voice heard anytime, 24/7, 503-746-TALK. A very big thank you to my official chef and puppy sitter, J.D. Fishin, without whom I could not be doing this show. And remember, you have to get out there and participate with us. We have to be the change. We have to make the difference. We have to show up and not just talk about it. Words are just words until we put those words into action. Much love, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the Nicole Sandler Show. One more time. Check us out at filterfreeradio.com.
Filter Free Radio.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. So give me something to believe, 'cause I am living just to believe, and I need something more to keep on breathing for. So give me something to believe.
The revolution will be broadcast
Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filter Free Radio.